and I'm very proud to introduce you today to the very Reverend Norman Hamilton.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for your welcome this afternoon, which is rather overwhelmed me, and I'm very grateful for the invitation from the conference here to my wife Evelyn and myself to be with you, and the opportunity to address you. Already, even over lunch, as I've been here, I've learned so much more about the work of the GAA. And I'm well aware that, like many others, I still have a great deal more to learn and to appreciate. But maybe I want to start by saying that whatever I bring this afternoon, I bring it as a Christian pastor and a Christian minister. My core identity is as a follower of Jesus Christ, however poorly I may carry that through. So I come not as an armchair politician or a community activist or a social commentator, but as someone who is trying to bring my best understanding of the teaching of both the Bible and of Jesus himself, and where that teaching would take us on the often complex issues facing us all in Ireland today. And maybe I want just to echo a wee bit of what Ryan has said, and to start really in my address to you where our relationship actually started, in that really important first meeting between the Presbyterian Church and the Ulster GAA with Danny and Ryan here in Armagh on the 10th of January. That meeting, which as Ryan was referred to, during which the news of Michaela McAreevy's death came, though of course we were unaware at the time of the cruel and tragic circumstances surrounding it. The news changed the course of that meeting. For, as Ryan has already said, we were able to pray for the family in the quietness of that room. And then just a few months later, I was privileged to meet Constable Ronan Kerr's family at his funeral in Berla after his brutal murder a few days earlier. I think it's only right and proper to say once again, as a pastor, that the hearts of many thousands outside the GAA community still go out to you. For we know only too well that the intense grief and pain are still there, even though the immediate events have long since gone from the front page of the newspapers and they no longer dominate the TV and radio news bulletins. You've asked me to offer some challenges to you, and it's a privilege both to be invited to try to do that and to see what comes. In doing so, I'm very conscious that the road of challenge is a two-way street. For whenever a challenge is accepted and met, that of itself brings a challenge back to the person or group who asked the original question. The response creates a challenge in reverse, and that's healthy because the two-way dialogue that ensues leads to much better relationships and understanding. So this afternoon, I want to offer two challenges and a serious suggestion to you, each of which I think is substantial in its own right, but without entering too overtly into areas that are often embroiled in the argy-bargy of our still much too divided public and political discourse. The first challenge is this: how the use of the Irish language can be depoliticized, or to coin a phrase, how it can be de-footballed, how to stop it being kicked around in a political game. I'm well aware that the Irish language is a key expression of Irish culture, history, and that Irish medium schools have a valued place in our educational system. And Irish has a valued place within Irish Presbyterianism. It may surprise you to know that as far back as the 1830s, all students for the Presbyterian ministry at Ulster were required to be competent in the Irish language. And in today's world, I would actually expect native Irish speakers to do business in Irish, to have everyday conversation in Irish, to have radio and TV programmes in Irish, because that greatly enriches the cultural traditions of the island. I don't want to see the Irish language relegated to the backbenches. However, it is simply stating a fact that if it is used unwisely, it switches off and even antagonises very many, perhaps even a majority, of the unionist population here in the north. And even my use of the word unwise may well have triggered a negative response within the hall. And therein lies the discussion and the debate. It's not always wise to use our right to its fullest extent, if in doing so we increase resistance to that right. It is not always wise to press for something, however desirable, if in doing so we devalue what it stands for in the eyes of others. For example, to press for a second set of street signs in Irish is to appear to stake an exclusivist claim for territory in a way that flags also do. Or again, when a Northern Ireland government department sends me a bilingual letter in Irish as well as in English, as has happened, I ask myself, why am I getting pages of written material paid for by the taxpayer that the sender knows I cannot read? Now, in saying all of this, I do want to be absolutely clear. I am not in any way attacking the Irish language or its proper use. Quite the reverse. I want it to be properly valued, not just by those who speak it, but by those of us who do not speak it. And that brings me to a positive suggestion, born out of the work and experience of Plaid Cymru in Wales and those who speak Welsh. My understanding is that in Wales, the Welsh language has ceased to be a political football, or perhaps more accurately for them, it's no longer a political rugby ball. The focus is on giving people the opportunity to learn it and encouraging them to do so. It is very significant that all four parties in the Welsh Assembly, Plaid, Labour, Conservatives and Lib Dems, compete for the votes of Welsh speakers. Welsh as a language is no longer the preserve of nationalist politics. I think the Welsh example teaches us that when there is no political capital to be gained from opposing it, or even better, when there's near universal goodwill towards the language, there are huge benefits in building community cohesion, huge opportunities to promote the language, and considerable mileage for the commercial and tourist sectors, since they don't need to worry about scaring away customers. So can I invite the GAA to consider how to help take any partisan politics out of the Irish language, to help ensure that the language is a means of communication and not a tool of confrontation.